We are.
Yes. So I want to welcome everyone here. With Pawel, we are starting a completely new series, which is called Agentic Commerce Live. And maybe I will tell a little bit about the series and the goal of the series, and like what we would like to do. So in general, there's a lot of news everywhere, pretty much, about agentic commerce. You hear it from big players, you hear it from small players. Obviously, everyone wants to have something agentic commerce, so you also see a lot of products. The problem that we see is that there's basically a lot of fluff. So like you read the news are very often amplified to a very high degree without really carrying any important information. So the goal of this podcast is really to not be very structured, but just to look at the news, look at some topics that we are hearing about, and try to have an open discussion, also including you. So you can ask questions on the chat. You can even send us some questions if you want to just have an open discussion about those particular topics. And see what we can deduce out of this. So we're obviously doing some prior preparation. We're reading the news. We're trying to look at the data, etc., but also not rehearsing it that much, just to make sure that we can actually, bounce some ideas, to have a nice discussion, and sometimes even disagree on topics.
I think Cesare might be.
Yeah, someone in the background is using.
Typing.
Good. Yeah, we have Cesare, our VP marketing, making sure that everything is working properly. So also say hello to Cesare. So yes, the goal of this series is pretty much just to go for everything agentic commerce. Let it be a news, let it be a gossip, let it be something that is just interesting to discuss, and try to see what is true, what is fluff, what others are saying, what the industry is saying, and how we actually see the future. So the topic for today is the topic that we had to have as the first topic, obviously, mostly because of the nature of the product that Alokai is doing. The topic is if we're trying to answer the question if the conversational chatbots will replace the front ends. And, by conversational chatbots, we could mean many things, to be honest. During the discussion, we'll probably touch a little bit on chatbots that are just included into the storefronts, on like separate things like Gemini, ChatGPT, etc. So bear with us and let's try to unpack this topic. So, Pawel, when we're discussing this topic briefly during preparation, you mentioned that for you, in general, the answer to this topic is not as simple because you see e-commerce in general as like a layered system.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe let's start with those layers. Maybe let's start with this and try to roll into the rest of the discussion and see how it unfolds.
Yeah, let me, Philip, start with something a little bit different. To explain myself what I'm doing here, because here is the story, man. Like you and I, we spend many hours discussing those topics about where all it's going, starting in spring this year. And we exchanged really a lot of good ideas, and then you became busy building, so we were building really good stuff in Alokai with Compass, and we have less time. And when you offered me that opportunity, I said, oh gosh, if that's the only way I can get Philip's attention and his curious mind to discuss all those great stuff, so let it be, let's go. And listen about, recent discussion, and it's really coming even from yesterday, ChatGPT announcing yet another potentially big thing. Let's see if we will like it as consumers. Let's see if they will nail it technically. But they're announcing a lot, almost every week. But there is still one general truth, that it's about free, like the ability to discover products and discovery layer. Then you have channels where this discovery happens and maybe engagement more and more. And then at the end, you have your core business, your web shop, this channel of pure engagement with your consumers, where you fully own that the journey, so to say, of your customer.
Mm,
Mhm.
okay, so you're saying there are three layers. I'm not sure if I actually agree. Like to me, there are two layers. At least this is also something that I've been writing about a lot on my LinkedIn recently. Like I see that there are like the ones that are owned by the brand, and there are the ones that are not owned by the brand. So like a discovery channel, somewhere that you just push uh, your data, your products, or just your content, and try to grab the attention of the people on this platform. Like Instagram is this kind of channel, for example, and something that you inherently own. And this is a web shop that we'll probably talk about a little bit in a moment. So this is at least how I saw that most of the time. So what makes you think that we have actually free?
So listen, so here is my argument. Think about that, because I do agree. I mean, the Chat GPT and the likes, Perplexity, Google AI, both, they are all becoming like Google 2.0 in terms of how people will discover valuable. Like I'm looking for an running shoes, Nike good running shoes, and why the merchant, why the specific retailer will be discovered by me. It really translates to how we were doing Google searches. Now we will be more conversational in our kind of product discovery, but still it's about finding the right retailer, and there will be some sort of pay to play there, some sort of who is relevant for the consumer, but also some sort of attribution model. Yeah, why like we have with SEO and SEM. But then I see that more and more engagement, the actual engagement, is happening also there, not only on your website. And the analogy here can be social media. It was just a channel to discover stuff, but at the end we have social commerce. We're buying. At times there are some categories where you can buy there.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a great point. So you're saying we have those three layers, right? And AI is impacting all of them. So maybe let's talk about the first one. So let's talk about this discovery layer.
Mhm.
I think to many of us, it's kind of some of the things that these are kind of obvious, like we are seeing that we have completely new channels like ChatGPT, like Gemini, etc. So this is probably the completely new discovery channel that we just didn't have before. And as a merchant, probably you have to be present in there. But
Mhm.
also we've seen some interesting news recently, right? Like how those things are being explored in the e-commerce space. Because to those of you who are looking at the news, you probably noticed that in the last, I think, 3 months, there's been a massive amount of announcements from OpenAI mostly. And I think from OpenAI probably because they do not really own any commerce specific channels. Like,
Mhm.
they're a completely new player on the market. They need to disrupt it. And it's not an easy job because when you're Google and when you own Gemini, you just mix Google Gemini with Google Shopping, integrate those things together, and it just works. For OpenAI, they need to come up with something completely new. They somehow need also to attract the general public, both from the customer side, but also from the merchant side, to be there. So I see a lot of interesting things being released from them. To be honest, I don't see many things being released from other players, and I think the reason why they are lagging could be that they are still ahead of OpenAI. But this is just a side story. So going back to the core topic, what do you think about this discovery layer? Like, apart from the obvious things, like how do you see this being impacted by AI?
Well, so first of all, Philip, I think what happened, because I see other guys like Gemini, Google is doing some interesting stuff, but OpenAI just talks a lot about that. You know why? Because I believe they just they created something that is incredibly useful for us as customers, as consumers. It's like around 1 billion of us, weekly there, and only now they're trying to figure figure out like, okay, like how to kind of how to create a viable business model in that thing, you know.
Yeah.
Mm, and I mean, because it's such high intent channel, it's not like, you know, a social commerce is for some categories. You will you just simply not a place to sell do every e-commerce, like, you know, B2B. It's just not a place for that. But the AI platforms are for, I mean, are more general. Like they can do really good stuff if you're looking for a drill or if you're looking for a running shoes. You know what I mean? Like if you're looking for a drill to for a job site user because you're buying the power tool, stuff like that. That's also a story that you can address there. And people will go to ChatGPT or Google AI mode just to ask those questions, like how can I do something, and they will those ChatGPT is like thinking. I mean, OpenAI is now thinking like how to help
Mm-hmm.
and drive traffic to web shops, but also, and that's interesting. They also say, but maybe we can do some commerce. Maybe we can be that marketplace, and that's what scares people. Like, you know, how to answer to that.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that they are mostly trying to rival pretty much the search engines, not necessarily the e-commerce platforms. But right now, with the releases that they have released, like Agentic Commerce, Instant Checkout, all of those things, they seem to be also trying to, you know, to see if they can actually become the e-commerce platform on its own, right? So without
Yeah.
gouging the interest of the user to actually, you know, leave this place, which makes a lot of sense because, you know, from the perspective of the business, like the more you own, the more you can charge for this, right?
Yeah. Philip, do
So
you see the irony here? Like you just real. I mean, my best summary for what you just said is that they are going, meaning Sam Altman and OpenAI is going for war with Google and Amazon at the same time. That's a
yeah,
big thing.
yeah, yeah, that's probably the only way also to justify those crazy investments, right? And also the supposed 1 trillion IPO that is coming in 2027. I think, you know, for OpenAI to really live up to those expectations, like they need to be like a heavy disruptor on pretty much every field. Like, let it be e-commerce, let it be video generation, whatever. Like they need to try to tap into every possible place, kind of ride on the wave of disruption, because AI is maybe not completely resetting, but it is opening a window of opportunity for disruption in many areas of the market that previously were just not open. Like if you think, you know, about challenging Google, like it was not possible to challenge Google before AI. Like right now, that, you know, the customer behaviors are changing, and maybe it is possible. The same with Amazon, right? It's not possible to challenge Amazon really because of the position that they have. But maybe right now people will start using internet differently. There's an opportunity to position yourself in a place where, you know, this new way of interacting with the internet, you will be the default one. So from that perspective, I understand. From the other perspective, I still think like in the long run, OpenAI will probably fail because it doesn't take that much time for the other players to catch up. Again, like Google, for example, Google, at least from my perspective right now, is absolutely number one when it comes to AI. Also, I think from all of the LLMs, they are the only profitable one, but that's another story. But when we are talking about those discovery channels, again, going back to the core topic from this fascinating talk about sustainability of OpenAI as a company. So we saw something super interesting recently that you were super excited about as well. It's the release of Apps SDK for OpenAI. And, you know, this thing could seem like something trivial because not many people actually talk about it. But what we both agreed on is that it actually is absolutely transformative, and a lot of people is missing the point of like what doors it is opening, like what the future could look like with things like that. So maybe you can expand on this.
Yeah. So first of all, it's actually what I discovered last weekend when I was for a longer weekend, and a friend of mine he actually showed me how nicely he's an avid Gemini user. I'm not. I'm like more ChatGPT and Claude. He showed me how nicely the maps, Google Maps are integrated into Gemini. Like you can ask for a restaurant recommendation on Gemini, and it will help you to discover those places on Google Maps natively. It's just like really different way workflow. Anyways, the point is with this technology or this concept is that you're introducing a merchant owned, meaning like a brand owned experience that you can give to or offer to the user to sort of to inject yourself into the chat between the user and the chat GPT. You know, you can inject yourself and say like, hey guys, like you're looking for that perfect, I don't know, setup for a ski trip this winter. Here is how we can help, and here are the products I can offer you, and you can discover those products together with, as a consumer, together with the brand, with the and brand owns that experience. Brand defines
Mhm.
how the products are being shown, how to engage with that customer. That's super important.
So we are pretty much just talking about like a micro application running inside of an LLM that is just downloadable on demand, which indeed like it could look like a completely new operating system. Like when you think about this, like a pure
That's a good
blue
one.
ocean. So we have a new platform. People will be using this platform like mobile phones, for example. I think that would be a good analogy. Like we used to have smartphones, and right now the LLMs are like those ChatGPTs, Geminis, etc. They're like smartphones without the app stores. So the
Mhm.
app SDK, this is pretty much an introduction of an app store right now. So every
Yeah.
time someone has a specific use case, they can actually end up in this micro application. And when you're thinking about those 3 layers, like I would say to me, if we have any kind of engagement, like that's the engagement layer. So like the intermediate layer between your web shop or your application or whatever that is somewhere in the web and this chat, right? So it could be an intermediate layer. It could even be the final layer if this is good enough. Like I don't know, if I'm probably ordering pizza and I have a pizza app, that's probably the only thing that I need. I don't really need to go into the website. But if I'm configuring a complex product or something like this, like there could be some the first steps that I'm making in there, and then going to a bigger configurator, or maybe watching the order. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an interesting concept, but like to me, it could be nothing. Obviously, like right now, it is very early to say that, but it could also be a completely new uh, blue ocean for applications. And then when we are thinking about this, like every brand has to be there, right?
Mm.
Because ultimately, like what choice do you have? It's like with SEO. Uh, people are using the search providers like Google. So you can either optimize for SEO and kind of try to control the experience, the flow, like
Mhm.
how are you ranked, what is the description, etc. Or let Google robot do this for you, completely out of your control. And then it's probably not very good for your business. So I think the same will happen with the chats, right? Like you either want to control this experience, or the generic prompt response will actually control this experience. So when they will ask about your company, they will ask about buying uh, goods from a specific brand, like you will just see a generic product types and things like that, instead of like a application that you control that has maybe some personalized promotions or whatever. So from that perspective, I think it is giving a little bit of control, but also not for all use cases, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, no, listen. First of all, you called it micro apps, and we don't know how people will call it in 10 years from now. Maybe in 10 years from now, people will be asking, really? You had like standalone web shops? That's one reality.
Yeah.
The the reality that I'm more leaning towards is that that actually, yes, there will be a lot of the discovery happening on those AI platforms, and then the and actually I thought it's not only about that the most that those chat GPT apps will be like replacing the web shop. They will be still their main role would be to drive you to engage really with customer on the actual website, on your web shop, where you fully control that journey. And I think as a practitioner, you're building those technologies to support web shops for last 10 years. Like, how you think web shops itself should evolve, how the core should kind of transform to or adapt to this new reality.
Okay, so like before I will dig into this, because I see we have some new people in here coming. So just to summarize, like until now, I think like we kind of agreed that like the current discovery channels are probably the ones most affected by this AI revolution, because we're talking about the completely new discovery channels, mostly natural language driven, and the existing ones will change obviously, but we're also talking about completely new channels like ChatGPT, Gemini, this sort of stuff. And we are also having this apps framework that could act as an intermediate layer between this discovery channel and the web shop. I think it's debatable, and and we will see in the future if this is really an intermediate layer or maybe the final layer. If OpenAI will succeed, or Gemini will succeed, like maybe it will be the final layer. But I still think convenience of clicking is not necessarily always worse than convenience of talking. Like sometimes it's much easier to do like 3-4 clicks. Sometimes it's much easier to explain the context. It really depends on the use case. So you're asking me what's next, right? Like how the storefronts will change, how the shops will change in general. And this is pretty much the core of our discussion as well, right?
Yeah, exactly, Filip. But let me just add one thing, because I firmly believe that the experiences that we will see on ChatGPT, built on ChatGPT apps framework, will allow you to both chat and click. Like it will be seamlessly in terms of it will not be trying to completely reinvent the way we engage with technology. You can chat with it only. I'm very sure it will be a lot of clicking. Anywhere we will have something built for humans, we would want to if it's native web shop or a native app or a app on chat on AI platform, we want to have a mouse or a touchpad. That's how computers are built for last 30 years. It won't change.
Yeah, do you think so? Like I've heard some opinions, and I kind of agree, but I also think it would need a visual part into this, that the voice assistants could actually have a second coming, because I think everyone who are watching this and YouTube, Pawel, will agree that the current iteration of voice assistants is not very spectacular. They are very often very wrong, and like you can only do very, very basic things. While what you really need from this kind of interface is you need it to be able to cover all the use cases. You need it to be more capable than just understanding a few basic comments and you remembering those comments. Like it needs to be responsive. So like large language models are actually fixing this problem. And that's, I think, also an interesting take, because it could be that the interfaces of the future are actually the voice interfaces. Like there is a lot of things around user experience, I think, that you have to deal with somehow. For example, when you're buying something like clothing, like you kind of need to see this before buying, right? So not all of the use cases will be suitable. But then we could also think, maybe I'm just theorizing, but maybe people will start wearing smart glasses, and you'll be able to just talk to your smart glasses and having all of that displayed immediately, just as a proposal. But let's see how the future unfolds, right? But until then, until all of the UX problems will be solved, I think we need to talk about how the reality looks right now. So the reality looks right now in a way that the voice assistants are still not very good. When you talk with LLMs, they're still not very capable. Like, we have those apps SDK, but it's not even public. So who knows when it will start getting attraction, if it will ever get attraction. I think it's mostly, an experiment at this point. So we have the existing channels, like the storefronts, right? So will those change? Like, do you think, Pawel, we can already talk about replacing the storefronts, or you wouldn't with that her?
They will listen. I mean, because no way, man, no way. For not. I mean, I'm not saying only about near future. I'm talking generally, because even in that scenario of voice assistants, yeah. I mean, I would love to see a moment whereby Google Home will start finally working, because it's not working since 2019, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though I had big hopes with that, indeed, but even in that scenario, if I'm buying something I want to see, like clothing, or considerable purchase, which I care how it looks, what's the experience with the product, even I would probably tell that thing to bring it to some sort of browser on this big screen, so that I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And the web shop is something that will need to ensure that this experience is great for the customer, that the experience of looking onto product comparison.
Mm-hmm.
I just left, really, I mean, like, people, Zuvu, a company, literally obsessed, and really obsessed in a very positive way about changing the way people discover products, um, on the web shop itself, like how AI can not change the way you do it, but improve it. Like, it's more about how you can improve the way that people discover products without this changing the way they used to do it. That's in my opinion interesting thing.
Yeah, that's true. Like, it's much harder to make a complete disruption rather than
Yeah.
changing something existing. But, like, I would say, even from the perspective of the ownership, because what we are discussing, what we are theoretizing about right now, is mostly from the perspective of the end user. But let's think a little bit about how the brands are thinking, right? As a brand, you probably won't be so willing. I mean, not every brand, but especially big brands, like, you won't be so willing to give the full control out to the third party. So you can imagine, if OpenAI will have absolutely full control over, what product it will be displaying, how it will be displaying, in what context it will be displaying it, etc., without giving a brand any chance of regaining the control, and capturing the attention of the user by, I don't know, showing them, what to upsell, what to cross sell, what matches with this, maybe, how to configure the products, etc. Then they pretty much have a monopoly over everything, and they can charge insane fees. Like, imagine that you are, Nike, Reebok, or any other big brand, and suddenly you are giving full control over the experience of your users to a third party. And because this third party is so popular right now, this third party is starting to charge much more for displaying your products on the top. Right now, it is starting to apply additional fees for payments. So I would say, the best customer for this new discovery channel, if you're thinking about the end-to-end experience, but in general, I think this is the current customer of marketplaces. So big marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, etc. Like, they're already used to this. They are fine with those cons. They're fine with those trade-offs, because what matters to them the most is the fact that they just can easily be plugged into the other system and discovered. But I think bigger brands, they will probably still like to keep the ownership of their brand experience. So now, talking about this ownership, because we're kind of jumping around this topic, but not getting into this. So we have those storefronts, right? So do you think the experience on the storefronts will have to change as well?
Yes. For example, I mean, it's yes. I mean, going into the very headline of our discussion today, yes, there will be chatbots on on web shops, and there will be a lot of conversations happening on web shops. And I really like that concept that you guys introduced, where it's like when you need it, you bring it, to the table, with you open it up and you have a conversation, or it maybe opens because it wants to have a conversation with you, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like you're forced to do that. You can still kind of naturally browse the products you like, and for example, in fashion, it will be still, and I believe always, a lot of clicking. Like, you just literally want to click. That's the way you want to be inspired.
Yeah,
Make
so
sense?
now that you brought it up, I have no other choice than making a shameless promotion. So what Pawel mentioned in general, like for those who don't know, maybe there are some people that don't know, we launched a product some time ago. It's called Alokai Compass. And Alokai Compass is, the goal of Alokai Compass is pretty much, to just turn your storefront into something more AI driven, like guided shopping. And the fundamental thing that we don't agree with the rest industry on right now, we don't disagree because we haven't heard any opposite opinions. We just saw that the way how everyone approaching this topic is they're just putting a chatbot on the right bottom corner of the application, exactly the same chatbot as you used to have when they didn't work, which is probably the worst thing you can do, because the first thing, people are conditioned to ignore those things or hate those things. Like, when you are entering a page, how many times you're excited about talking to a chatbot? Like, how many times it annoyed you, though? Like, this is just a bad UX that is kind of imprinted in our mind. So that's the first problem. The second problem, I think it's a huge waste of potential. Like, we've been touching on this before. Like, not every problem can be solved better with a conversation. Like, in many cases, it's actually the opposite. Like, the UX with a conversation can be 10 times worse. Imagine, buying a lot of things or browsing products purely from the voice or conversational interface. Like, it's gonna be a nightmare. But when you're just browsing it on a big screen, it's great, right? So what we believe is, that those experiences of the future, they won't be fully conversational, they won't be fully static like right now. It will be kind of like a mix of that. And AI can actually be applied not only in the conversational way into the application. So think about anything that is currently static and can be dynamic, like product attributes that you're searching through. Like, you can just dynamically say, these are the attributes or these are the characteristics that are interesting to me. Filter the search results based on this. Like, I'm looking for clothes, I'm looking for the ones that are suitable for winter, but I can still wear them in the summer. Or, I'm looking for a computer, I'm looking for something that looks classy, I'm looking for something that's lightweight, that will have a battery that lasts maybe 9 hours, but also has this, specific CPU, GPU, and also is pink. So, like, a lot of those things can be found on typical filtering, but some of them might not, like a material of the laptop. So this is, I think, like a good use case for like where we could use also AI. Like, we can use it to look for places where the customers were limited before and has to find, the way around the interface or the available options and just make them more generic. So, like, this is the core promise of the Compass. Like, it's a framework that allows to turn any piece of the interface into this AI journey. And it was an ad, but it was at the same the statement about what we believe those storefronts should look like. At least I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know how about Pawel. I mean, I know how about Pawel, but I will tell you also I will allow you to compliment what I have said.
No, yeah, you exactly. I mean, it's we're not faking it. We have some disagreements, but we also agree on a lot of stuff. And what we agree here, I fully agree with Philly. what I maybe will add, imagine, guys, the potential of such technology when you will apply it to customer context fully. Like, think about those, and I saw that exactly on Alokai Compass demo, a really great demo where you kind of define your own filters. But imagine now you have AI that understands your context, understands that you're, for example, a gamer, and that you bought a really good gaming computer. If you're browsing through the accessories, it will optimize for that specific, for the way you want to explore that product catalog. And that's so powerful, like I will have very seamless experience as a consumer. It's not about chatting, it's about just AI helping me to tailor that experience to my kind of literally personal preferences.
Yep. So we can say that, like we can just use AI to make the whole shopping experience more personal, not necessarily through conversation, just by anything. By the way, for those who are watching us, I think there's like 12 or something people. If you have any questions or maybe some disagreements, etc., just drop it on a chat. Like, the purpose of this series, really, we're doing this for the first time, but I hope it will stay like this. It's just to be cozy, just to have it more conversational, not only us chatting, but really, if there are any topics from the chat that we could bring in here, or maybe some disagreements, just drop it, because we would like to learn together, like share, exchange opinions together. I don't think there are any necessarily bad opinions in a situation when the market is so young, because the truth is no one knows how it's going to look like. We can all just prioritize and throw our opinions. So especially if there is someone who has their own opinion on those topics and it's a different opinion, let us know. We'll bring it here and try to also figure out how, if it is aligned with our beliefs or not, if there's maybe some data backing this up, just so you know. And we already have someone.
Exactly, you're talking about, but exactly. So where you guys play? Like, we're talking for last 30 minutes about where we believe it's all going, but how you guys, where you play, where Alokai wants to play, how you guys want to sort of, where you put your chips. Is it going into the basic question? Is it chats or is it storefronts?
And we already have a question, actually. So from Tom. Tom, thanks for being the first one to ask the question ever in the history of the series, in a 1 hour history of the series. Does it make sense to replace your regular search that uses Algolia with conversational search? I think that's a great question. And maybe let me answer first what I think, and maybe Pawel can complement. So first of all, I would be extremely surprised if Algolia and other providers wouldn't already have natural language-based search, to be honest, because it's a hot new thing. Everyone wants to do something with AI. Everyone wants to launch something with AI. As a search provider, probably that would be the first thing that I would be launching. So I would expect that most of the search providers will have this kind of thing. Now, the question is, at least from my perspective, is will it be worth for you to use this kind of tools, like dedicated search engines, rather than putting LLM on top of like some free tool? Like, for example, if you're using SAP and you already have Solar attached to SAP, or maybe you have some open source search that you are using that is not very capable, but if you put AI on top of this to manage queries, etc., maybe it will suddenly become super capable. Like the way how Compass works for most of the projects that we were testing it on, is that it is just testing, it's just taking the SAP Commerce Store that has Solar, so all of the out-of-the-box things. Solar, it's a good search for out-of-the-box search, but when we think about more extensive product discovery, I don't think it is capable enough. This is why people often enhance it with other things that are very much dedicated for that. And this is why very often we are seeing that they are just adding another layers into this. So the way how Alokai Compass works is actually putting an AI layer on top of Solar. So when you type a search query, it is translating this to the search query to Solar, and then Solar is finding the right product for you. Which also means that the problem with all of those searches that are not having a lot of dynamic ways of finding products is that they very often need a very direct search queries. It's not that they are incapable on their own, it's that you need a very direct search query. So what AI can do, it can pretty much translate the natural language into this very direct search query, and then you can find exactly what you want. While other tools with some vector index searching, etc., you're quite good at trying to figuring this out even from a normal query. But the thing is, anyway, so that is the explanation. So my point is
that was insightful, though. I really appreciate that. That was really insightful. What really you're solving instead of just trying to figure out, leaving it to machine to figure out what customer needs. You used machine to translate it to a really good search query.
Yeah. So my point is, it used to be very hard to make a very good search engine before that, but I think LLMs are completely changing the game. Like with a very low effort, you can achieve maybe like 60, even 70% of the quality of like a fully fledged, very expensive search engine, just by putting an LLM on top of Solar or something like this. And now the question is, is this 70% enough for you? Because for many brands, actually, this 70% will be enough. And then I think a lot of search engines will have problems because it became increasingly easier to just have a good product discovery that is comparable to the best search engines out there, comparable, let's say, to the 70 percentile of cases. So those things, they will really be much more suitable for probably some more advanced or niche use cases, and this is where they will have to position. I'm not sure if this is fully answering your question, but I hope it does. At least it just sparking a thought in your head.
Good stuff, man. I mean, if you guys can solve that problem of good search, good product discovery via searching on web shops by offering something that is really modernization rather than replatforming of search engine, like that would be awesome. That is really the big thing, but let's see. I mean, I guess my point. I mean, I'm still curious to understand. Like, there are many things. Like, what do you believe people should invest in? Should they should they invest in this discovery or in channels in the own web shop or both? Like, and where you want to offer technology? Like, going back to the question of higher than web shops itself, generally, like how the whole e-commerce funnel will work and how you play there.
Yeah, I think both actually, and I think you've actually put it very nicely. Like, it's a journey. Like, you have multiple layers, right? And what you need to invest is you need to invest into improvements on every layer. So you need to, first of all, improve your core layer, which is your storefront. So let's be honest, users will be much lazier. Like right now, everyone are getting used to the fact that they just write a prompt and they're getting all the information that they need. Sometimes they don't even read this information, because if there is too much, they're just copying, pasting again, and asking to summarize. Like, let's be honest, the customer is becoming lazier, increasingly lazier. So you also have to adjust your current user interface to those lazier customers. Like, you have to look at your whole buying journey, figure out, okay, like this might be the place that are frustrating, and see if you can solve it either with traditional UX and just be creative, or just use LLMs to do this. I think that's the first thing, because otherwise you won't be really competitive with all the other channels, and also you won't be competitive your own competition because they'll probably have it. And as we know, UX can win customers and UX can lose customers, like especially if they're not high intent customers. Like if we have a customer that is just looking for a t-shirt, then you may lose them. If we have a B2B customer, like super high intent that has a long relationship, maybe that won't be that much of a problem for you. So this has to happen, but obviously you also need to be present on the other channels, because if everyone are asking for things on the chats, like you want to appear on those chats, right? So my answer is both. Like you have to invest in both, and you probably have to invest heavily, because the data, I don't have it at hand, but the data says clearly that people are getting used to this. People are already expecting instant answers, and especially Gen Z, even millennials, they're fine with chatbots showing them the recommendation of the products. So
by the way, I saw that 53% of Gen Z guys, it really struck me, 53, half of Gen Z guys are starting their product discovery journey on chatbots like ChatGPT or Gemini, or Perplexity. It's interesting, really interesting how much we're moving into that.
And I think that's the best
answer. Yeah, so I'm not sure how much time we have, because I want to learn from you one more thing, honestly. Like, okay, so where you would invest? Like, what's the maybe phasing of investment? Maybe just like, should we focus on those new touch points, or should we focus on maybe a core, meaning your own web shop? And I don't want to trivialize that, but AIification of your web shop.
Okay, so like. Let's break this down a little bit then, because it's not as easy. Like even for the channels, like we have 3 categories. Like one category is like when I'm looking for boots, I want my boots to be displayed. This works out of the box without doing anything. Like if you look for Nike boots, for example, like it will find you Nike boots, and Nike didn't have to have any collaboration with them or make it available. Chatbots are just browsing internet, indexing things, and finding those products. So by default, you will actually appear to them. The question is, first of all, like, do you want instant checkout, and do you want to be able to be shoppable directly from this channel? Then it requires some further integration, and I would say, like, for most brands, probably you don't want to actually, because it's an additional fee. But if you're like more like a marketplace-driven brand, then maybe you won't. But there's a third thing, the apps part, right? The apps part. We're talking a lot about this, but the truth is apps are not even completely public yet. They're available for developers.
Going live soon. I think in December they will be sometime publicly available for everybody to build. I hope, at least, because they're just too interesting thing to wait too long for them, I guess.
Yeah,
there will be a lot of innovation happening there.
And again, like, the argument from the beginning of the conversation, like OpenAI cannot afford to lead to luck. So they need to push very hard. They need to gain momentum. They need to gain developers that are building those apps, because as soon as Google steps in, as soon as Microsoft steps in, as soon as Perplexity maybe even steps in, it will be much harder for them, because then they will have to compete. And let's be honest, they're not on a winning position right now. So there are also those apps. And the question, where should you invest? Like by default, you are there already. It's a search engine that just works. They have to be competitive, so you are there already. Now, if you want to control the experience, I would say in most cases you want to control this experience. You would like to build an app. So as soon as it launches, you should probably think about this. So whenever people are typing your brand or just looking for something and ending up, finding about your brand and starting to shop there, like you generally want to take control out of them as soon as possible. So if this is the middle ground where we can already do this, I would say do this. And then the storefront. I would say at least allow some kind of conversational search. At least look, at the places that your customers are finding your interface, where your customers are finding your interface frustrating, because this will be the friction points that could make you lose. Because again, the customer is becoming more demanding, the customer is becoming lazier. So I would say, the time to investment is now. maybe not invest very heavily, but at least try it out. The search is really a simple thing. Even with Compass, like we're able to add Compass to existing storefront within days, and integrated completely with the search, and also integrated with some parts of the storefront. And for most of the providers, if you're already using those providers, you probably have this kind of conversational search as a pretty much a simple toggle and switch in your admin dashboards. So that would be the bare minimum for me to do already. Expose yourself to those channels. Think about building an app as soon as the feature launches, like be there. Enhance your application with a conversational search, and take this as a first step and necessity right now, and continue investing next year by trying to identify where AI can actually bring the value. I wouldn't advise to blindly follow this, because most of the products that I see on the market are so-called hype chasers. Everyone talk about AI. A lot of people actually have KPIs to buy AI stuff. So brands are adjusting, but not many of those brands are creating something because they want to generate value. A lot of them create it because it has to be AI. So I wrote an article on my LinkedIn, like beware of hype chasers. I wrote there my methodology for identifying what is a hype chaser and what is actually product with the value. So you can look into this one. But I would definitely not skip the transformation right now. The truth is, the time to do this is now, because the customers are getting used to this right now. It's not a technology for early adopters, definitely. My grandma is using it. Pawel? I think we lost Pawel at the very end of this live stream. And he's back.
I hear you.
Okay.
I'm here. Sorry. So yes, indeed, some lagging. I was thinking, like, Philip, what we did not, I was actually, maybe it was partially because you made me silent, meaning thinking about what you're saying. Very wise words. And I think one thing we didn't address, and that's maybe something that we can address next time, is that on your own web shop, on channels you control, so potentially also on that OpenAI apps SDK type of experience, what you do is you have your direct customer relationship, and you have customer data, you have full understanding of the customer, you can control your destiny. And that's the part I really like. As a merchant, if you own the channel, you own the relationship with customer, you can control your destiny. So that's probably the best summary for me. If the web shops will survive that way, they survived Google shopping, they survived Amazon, they will survive AI platforms.
Okay,
They will become better.
I absolutely love this conclusion. So the conclusion of our discussion is pretty much, will AI replace front ends? Probably no, but the chatbots will transform completely the existing front ends, because the customer is getting used to the conversational way of doing things. But also the current storefronts won't become fully conversational, because sometimes it's just much more convenient to do a few clicks than explaining the whole context. In addition to that, though, we will have a new channels. We already have a new channels. There are new sales channels, and the same way as you wanted to be present on Instagram, the same way you wanted to be present on Google Shopping, you also want to be present in there. It is revolution, but at the same time, it's also not a revolution. It's just a lot of new things. But I would say the current structure of the market of products, etc., is pretty well positioned to just absorb it as an addition to this channel, a change, a new channel on that layer, but not something completely disruptive in a way that is flipping the status quo. I would say it's a significant enhancement, but right now I would say that's pretty much it. It's a UX enhancement. Like we used to have marketplaces, we used to have search engines, we used to have storefronts, and right now, instead of clicking, you're just writing, but at the same time, everything stays the same.
Yeah, love it, man. I mean, that's probably it. let's see. I mean, I am really curious, especially, I spent 12 years at SAP, and some of the biggest companies are using the technology. Uh, mm, some of that technology is kind of like, as we speak, transforming to that new AI, more AI powered world. I'm really curious to see how it will go, because you're partnering with at Alokai with SAP. So I am like, it's really interesting potential to change the way e-commerce works for biggest brands. I mean, that would be cool to see. See?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why we're having the series. So every 2 weeks, more or less, we'll be able to discuss this. So, thanks to everyone for being here. If you're not subscribing Alokai YouTube, subscribe it. And in 2 weeks, we are seeing each other again. And we'll be talking about something new that we will announce probably in a week from now. Thank you so much for being here for the first ever Agentic Commerce Live. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It was good talking to you, really. Take care.